For the longest time, landfills have been the only way that we knew how to dispose of our garbage, but the future is now. Just look around you and see how far we've come in the last 20 years with the development of cell phones and laptops, which make this presentation possible today. The same is true for even the smelliest things, garbage. There are now so many options for your garbage disposing needs that we at the Bay Bubbles Environmental Firm feel the need to share our knowledge to help come up with the best solution. As members of the Milton community ourselves, we understand what is at stake and believe we have found the right solution that will become the way of the future, plasma gasification. But what exactly is it? Plasma gasification is not simply burning garbage like you've already experienced before. Instead, it's more like vaporizing the garbage away. Plasma gasification occurs when waste is heated inside a sealed chamber with almost no oxygen inside, which forces the carbon-based molecules in materials like plastics to decompose into simpler substances. The mixture that is created is called a syngas, and is composed mostly of hydrogen and carbon monoxide. Any harmful contaminants are then minimized by a technique called scrubbing. The first reason that Milton should be using plasma gasification over other techniques is because it produces safer emissions than any other type available. For example, the only way that landfills are at all connected to the useful operation of agriculture is the creation of methane, and in most situations is not pretty. After all, methane has a high global warming potential, or GWP, which is an index that attempts to show the overall impacts on climate change of a specific gas in comparison to the same amount of CO2. Overall, methane is 21 times more effective at trapping heat, thus increasing climate change, than carbon dioxide. In fact, landfills account for 1/3 of all methane released into the atmosphere when it is created through the decomposition of carbon-based materials by bacteria. However, plasma gasification would decompose those same carbon-based materials into a syngas, which, as said previously, is made up mostly of carbon monoxide and hydrogen. Both of these have a lower GWP than methane, thus making them less harmful in the case of contributing to climate change. And the carbon impact it creates on the environment is significantly less than other technologies such as other types of gasification, incineration, or pyrolysis, as long as it is engineered properly. The chemical treatments, like scrubbing, then do a great job at removing other harmful emissions. To add on to this, Milton would not need a huge commercial-sized plant to operate, which means the less amount of garbage that is processed, the less emissions the plant will release, and thus be better for the environment. Milton only produces 80,000 tons of garbage. A plasma gasification plant in Ottawa processes 109,500 tons of garbage annually, and the operations are going so well since it opened up in 2011 that is currently undergoing the screening process to expand. Talk about encouragement for plasma gasification.
With solutions like this, plasma gasification just makes sense, which is the basis of our second point, that plasma gasification is practical. It is practical because of its land effectiveness. This is due to the fact that the size of one gasification plant needed for Milton is less than the size of a landfill, which just hoards garbage so that it can eventually decompose over a long time. Plasma gasification goes beyond this, however, since the reactions that are produced can become something more useful to the city of Milton. When imagining this, think about how recycled materials can be used to make clothes and other items later on. Plasma gasification does the same thing, using both of the different types of byproducts that it creates to their fullest potential so that they can actually be beneficial with no waste product to be left without a purpose. One example of this is the solid material that is produced by gasification called slag. Slag is created during the conversion of inorganic molecules that do not vaporize during plasma gasification and are left over in the form of a solid. This solid is then left to cool and is safe to be used in the construction of roads or other projects, which benefits the city overall. The slag could have been previous medical waste or other materials that would be too hazardous to put in landfills, but plasma gasification completely neutralizes them and gives them a second purpose. But perhaps the most practical of all of this is the fact that plasma gasification can create its own electricity through the refining of syngas, which is our third point for why it should be used here in Milton. The creation of electricity is especially important to this waste management technology because it means plasma gasification is able to power things, including the plant itself, and then any excess energy can be added to Milton's power grid to power the city itself. After all, Sweden generates electricity this way and has successfully managed to power millions of homes. In fact, they are so successful at generating energy this way that they import waste from other countries to power their own. This new innovation has caused the state of California to look into following Sweden's steps. Plasma gasification is able to generate energy through the byproduct of syngas that it creates. After being chemically treated to remove any contaminants, syngas becomes an energy-rich mixture that burns just like a fossil fuel and can be used to generate electricity. The amount of electricity generated in a plasma gasification plant exceeds the amount to run the plant itself, even leaving extra energy. This means the possibility of using plasma gasification to run homes here in Milton is very much a possible development that could happen in the near future. Though other technologies can produce electricity, like incineration, plasma gasification is more environmentally friendly. During combustion in the process of incineration, oxides that are pollutants are more likely to form, and the scrubbers placed on the inside of the smokestacks are not effective at removing them. Plasma gasification, on the other hand, is scrubbers that are highly effective, and the process happens in an environment with no oxygen, so no oxides and less pollutants are formed. Plasma gasification is once again not only self-sufficient, but can power its own energy that could open up more possibilities and benefits toward the community of Milton.
So, we've told you all about the great things that gasification has to offer. The only problem is that some people will disagree without knowing all of the facts. For example, environmentalists say that any waste-to-energy facility will discourage the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle, and along with it all of the hard work of Canadians in trying to create a sustainable method of garbage management. They say that our planet has finite resources, and so their way should be the one that everyone follows. The fact still stands that not everything can be recycled. That is why there are still landfills and why you are contemplating building a plasma gasification plant to deal with that garbage. Environmentalists see these two different types of garbage as opposition, with one way going against the other, but that simply isn't true. In practice, these two processes work together as subsystems instead of rivals, since recycling diverts garbage away from waste management to be dealt with in a more appropriate way for their specific type. This means that not as much emissions are being released from the plasma gasification plant than if everything has to be gasified, making it better for the environment. Take Ottawa, for example. Recycling saves about $8 million per year, which is money that can be put towards the collection of processing trash for plasma gasification. Ottawa is a perfect example of what Milton would expect, since the gasification plant there is about the same size as the one needed in Milton. If recycling continues and saves so much money there, why can't Milton also? For this reason, I think we can declare this myth busted. Overall, Milton City Council, we hope we have given you enough reasons to support plasma gasification for your waste management needs, since its emissions are safe, it is practical, and it is self-supporting through the creation of its own electricity, along with any extra that can go towards the city power grid. We at Bay Bubbles firmly believe in this solution and hope that you do too.